9769. Did you have something you wanted to get in?
Hello?
Your voice is very low. Can you speak up?
Hello, can you hear me?
Is it? I don't know. Is that just? Try. Go again. Go again.
Hello?
I can hear you. It's just you sound very low. If you can speak up, I don't know if it's a poor connection. I can hear you. It's just your voice is very low.
All right, I'll try my best.
Oh, okay. I can hear you. That's better. That's better.
Okay. Earlier in the broadcast, you mentioned that it was dangerous for black men to have a relationship with white women. Can you please elaborate on that?
Are you a new listener?
Yes, I am actually.
Okay. Let's see. Do you believe we're in a system of racism, white supremacy?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a suspicion of white people that they could be racist?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes. Okay. One I think is a huge problem with regards to racism, white supremacy, and why we non-white people, black people, have not been able to solve this problem is that we do not understand what it means to be white. If one thing, in fact, I would say today is not even a good broadcast. If you go back and you listen to the first time she was on the program, I think she did a much better job of explaining why it is that to be white means to be racist. She said it today, but she didn't do a good job. She did a much clearer job without all the unnecessary words and verbiage. And that's something that you need to think on, because I could be wrong. I don't try to convince people of that. I just say that's something to think on, and you can just take it as a question. What does it mean to be white? What I've concluded, and have you had sex with a white person?
No, I have not.
Okay, that's good. That's good. What I've concluded is that, particularly with white women, that is a huge, and that was a huge part of the dialogue today. I don't think non-white people think of white women as being racist. That is a huge error. It is a gigantic error. I think that sexual intercourse with white people, period, is one of the worst things that can happen. Just to be brief about it, if we're in agreement that there is a system of racism, white supremacy, white people have more power than non-white people. There's a huge power differential between the two of us. That said, we can just look at basic laws for how people are supposed to behave when there is a clear difference in power. If we're talking about on a job, between an employer and an employee, if we're talking about in prisons, the prison guards and the inmates, even if we're talking about at school with teachers and students, even at the collegiate level, in all of those situations, they have rules that prohibit and restrict sexual intercourse between those who have more power, be it the employer, the warden, or the professor. They're not supposed to be having sexual intercourse with the people that they are in charge of, the inmates, the students, the employees. The same should apply within the system of white supremacy. The more powerful white people, they should not be taking advantage of and exploiting individuals that are subject to them. You should not be, and particularly if they say they're about the business of ending this system. But that should not be going on. The second part of it is, under this system, all non-white people should have a huge amount of suspicion for any white person. You really, in my view, you should be thinking white equals racist, white equals racist, white equals racist. That being said, do you think it makes logical sense for a non-white person, a victim of racism, to have sexual intercourse with a racist?
Well, I mean, now that you've breaking it down the way you just did, it certainly makes sense for it not to go down that way. But I appreciate you breaking it down that way.
For sure. There are books on the subject. Pam, I think one already was mentioned. Pam, she's been on the program many times. If you go back in the archives, you can. We talked about her book, and we talked about this subject a lot. You can get the book. You can visit her website, racismws.com. It's titled "The Interracial Con Game." I wrote a review. You can read the review, or you can listen to the program to see if it will make more sense. One of the other huge reasons I have concluded that having sexual intercourse with a white person, it has a huge detriment with regards to that non-white person's ability to be honest about racism, white supremacy, and to logically think about white people. It has a huge impairment. I would even cite Dr. Eddie Moore Jr., the founder of the White Privilege Conference. He's been a guest on the program. We talked about this with him as well. He's married to a white woman. I feel like it totally destroys your ability to be honest about things because you've got, as Pam says all the time, you cannot go to bed with a white person and then get up and fight racism, white supremacy. He will say in one breath, he has a theory, it's called the theory of incapability. And I'm not gossiping. We talked about that. All this stuff is in archives. I'm not, trying to talk bad about him. He's a victim, but this is a matter of record. He said that he has a theory of incapability, meaning that white people cannot see black people as anything but niggers. And he explains this on the program, but he's still married to a white woman. And I think I asked him on the program, well, does your wife, who's white and admitted to being a racist, does she see you as a nigger? And he said yes. And I would just, pause right there. Does that sound like a healthy relationship where a black person is married to someone who thinks of them as a nigger?
No. Not at all.
Not gossiping. He's a victim. I'm not even talking bad. Again, this is a matter of record. You can go back and listen. 2009 was his first visit. He came back again in 2010 after I visited the conference. And, it's a matter of record. You can just check it out. As I said, Pam's book, great. You can listen to the program. It's one to think on. But I think white people know that this causes a lot of confusion for non-white people. If we can get them in the bed, they will be ruined. They won't think of us as victims. They'll sympathize with us. I'm sorry. Were you going to say something?
If white and non-white can have constructive dialogue in these kinds of relationships, then what sort of, progress can be made as far as combating the system of white supremacy, as far as making progress?
I didn't hear the first part of the question. What did you say?
If whites and non-whites can have these kinds of discussions or dialogues where we can address the relationship issues as far as the power that's being exchanged, as far as, entering these relationships, what progress can be made for combating white supremacy?
Conversations with white people at this point about having sexual, I will ask if they are having sexual intercourse with a white person, but I generally don't get into debates with them at this point about whether or not that should happen. And in my view, it's an act of racism, white supremacy. It is a maximum act of racist aggression anytime a white person is doing this behavior, encouraging this sort of behavior, misbehavior. I generally just try to keep it focused on getting constructive information and a better understanding of what it means to be a white person and the system of racism, white supremacy on the whole. It's been my experience, white people, they get very angry, very hostile at any suggestion that they stay out of bed with non-white people. Many of the white people that I've talked to, those have been some of the most hostile responses that I've got from white people. I had a white woman who burst into tears. We were having this discussion. I had a white man who was my white friend at the time. He was my white friend, and he was married to a white woman, so I felt he should have no emotional investment in this at all because, he's off the market and he's with a white woman. He got furious. He began cursing and didn't even want to shake my hand when we left. I was flabbergasted. Like, what? I don't understand. Why is this such an emotional attachment for you? It seems like you don't have a dog in this race, but apparently he did as a white man, and that's just what I've concluded based on their reactions, that this is very important that white people be able to maintain sexual access to their victims whenever they want it. They know that it benefits their system. If offspring are produced, they're going to be able to have another confused generation of offspring who can help maintain the system, and they can totally destroy that victim, the person that they've got in bed. They can totally destroy their will and ability to fight against racism, white supremacy, because now the enemy is right there. And what I've heard generally is that if they stay together, if there's a marriage or a long-term partnership and children, generally that right there will be enough to extinguish any dialogue on racism. Generally, the white person, from what I've seen, whether it's a white woman or a white man, they generally put their foot down and say, hey, we are not going to have a whole lot of chatting about racism, and that's that. And that's generally what happens.
I see. Well, Thank you, for definitely answering my questions. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Right on.
Yeah, I have something to say. I was just thinking, if white people think of non-white people as animals or like childlike, then why would they want to have sexual intercourse with them? And if they do want to do that, and they do want to do that, what kind of people are they? Like that's what I was thinking. That's my thoughts.
Psychopaths.
You're here. Oh, okay.
Jerry Sandusky, I say that's the way you should think about it. It's Jerry Sandusky. Every time out. That's anytime. I wouldn't care if it's the black person or the non-white person is 60 years old and the white person is 50, whatever the case. It's Jerry Sandusky every time. It's total perversion and pedophilia. As you said, they call us animals and monkeys and apes and all this other stuff. Why would you want to be in bed with someone that you consider less than human? It's total pathology in every way, shape, and form. And I think they even view it as that. I think Mr. Fuller, that's why he has it in the word guide, that they call it kinky sex. If you want to know, we were just talking about it with Renethia Tate for the listener.
Right.
She said the same thing. She said the exact same thing on her program, that's, hey, I can go experiment. I can go hop in with these niggas and we can do all kinds of things. I can stick things up their rectum and get down and do all kinds of freakish and perverted things. That's the way that they view us, and that's the way that they view that sex act, and all of those perversions that goes into the damage that it does to the non-white person's mind. Sex is huge. I think we really undervalue that when Dr. Welsing talks about this is the act that is responsible for us being here. This is how people are produced, and white people's disdain and perversion and pathologies in the bedroom speak volume to what they think about life on the whole, the creator, and us, and them to some degree.
I wonder too, like how white people can look at non-white people as not human, but I don't think like non-white people see white people as not human.
You see them as
I
angels.
think it's difficult.
We see them as angels.
Yes, and I don't see why it's so hard when they've done so many things and still do so many things. How it's so hard for non-white people to see that these people are monsters and demons.
That's what domination looks like.